Waiting for a miracle. To him who often asks for forgiveness, Allah will show him the way out of every predicament, ease every sorrow, and send him a portion from whence he does not expect. Abu Dawud, 1518. Ibn Majah, 3819. Little Leila lived every summer with her mother and grandmother in the village. There they had an unpainted wooden house made of round logs. There were rose hips in the yard below the bedroom window, and when Leila woke up, she always first lay awake for a while listening to the buzzing of bumblebees and bees that came to drink the nectar of the pink rose hips and inhaled the wonderful scents that wafted from the bush. This morning, however, there were no bumblebees or scent, for it had been raining since nightfall. Finding this unfortunate misunderstanding, the girl remembered that yesterday she had been promised a trip to visit her favorite friend Amina, and quickly rushed to her mother to confirm that the agreement remained in force. Her mother, seeing her daughter barefoot and in her pajamas, first sent her to brush her teeth and change her clothes. You'd think that not only eating, but also talking is not allowed with dirty teeth, the girl thought to herself, but she still complied with her mother's demands, because she was an obedient child. Brushing her teeth, the little Muslim girl imagined how she would go to visit Amina, what she would wear and what they would play at, and also dreamed of cakes with apricots that her friend's grandmother knew how to make and her own grandmother didn't. When she ran to her mother, she began braiding her pigtails, and Leila finally asked the question that had been bothering her. "I'm going to Amina's tonight, just like you promised, right, Mom?" But her mother told her something utterly impossible in response. "No, dear, it's raining outside, which will obviously last a long time, and in the afternoon Grandma and I decided to make cherry jam, and you will help us to separate the pips from the berries, so we'll have to wait to go." That was just awful. The girl burst into tears and began to persuade her mother to change her mind. She promised to wear wellies and even her least favorite raincoat. She even decided to give up her dress and wear warm pants, just to play with her friend today, but her mother was adamant. Leila became very angry with her mother and told her that she would not be helping her and her grandmother make jam. Slamming the door, the girl, stomping loudly, ran off to her bedroom to continue crying and resentment. Somewhere in the back of her mind, the girl knew she had overreacted, but she was already reeling from the wave of resentment of unfulfilled expectations. She remembered the apricots and Aminkin's big fluffy cat, which was very pleasant to cuddle with, and thought about how much she missed her friend. At that moment, Grandma came into the room. She began to make the beds and pretended not to notice her sobbing granddaughter. After a while, Leila herself turned to her with a question. "Grandmother, can't you see that I am crying? Don't you feel any pity for your poor granddaughter, whom no one in this house loves?" Grandmother stopped making the beds and sat down in her chair. She was quiet for a while, and then she said, "Leila, I feel very sorry for your mother first of all. She's my daughter, and I can't help feeling sorry for her, seeing how horribly you behaved today. You know that children who behave this way will not be pleased with Allah, and if Allah is not pleased with you, how can I or your mother be pleased with you? We love you, but we are very displeased with you." These words made the girl feel ashamed. But something in her heart would not let her give up so easily, for she was deprived of what she had so ardently dreamed of since the evening. Now instead of a pleasant day she would have a day of hard labor, wrestling with cherry bones. It seemed terribly unfair to her. And Leila said out of spite, "So what? Let you displease me, and let Allah displease me. I don't think it's that bad." Grandmother replied, "When Allah is angry, He does not give you what you ask for, and your mother and I are angry at your behavior and will not honor your requests. Maybe this way you will understand why you need everyone to be pleased with you." And Grandma left the room. And, indeed, from that moment on, Leila had to do everything herself. She got some cottage cheese out of the fridge by herself, heated some porridge in the microwave, and washed her own apple. Then she turned on her own cartoons. Then she wanted some cookies and jam, but the jar was very high, and Leila had to give up that desire. But no matter how much she forbade herself to think about jam, the thought of it kept coming back. Then she recited a dua for her mother and grandmother to give her what she wanted. So she went to ask for it. But nothing happened. Very quickly Leila began to feel sad that no one would talk or play with her. Her mother refused to read her a book. Her grandmother refused to watch her coloring a flower with bright colors. The girl was getting sadder and sadder. Then she read a dua asking Allah to help her, that her grandmother and mother would forgive her, and everything would be as before. But nothing had changed. Dinner was approaching, and the little girl was already exhausted. She was ashamed and very embarrassed. So she pulled herself together and went to ask for forgiveness. "Leila," her mother said in reply, "the worst thing is not that you have upset me and grandmother, but that Allah is not pleased with you. What do you think you should do now?" Leila, wrinkling her forehead and rubbing the ribbon from her play, thought for a while and finally answered, "I don't know." First of all, her grandmother explained, "You must ask Allah for forgiveness." The girl ran to her room, folded her hands like a dua, and said, "Oh Allah, forgive me, please. I have been a very bad girl all morning. I repent and I will never act like this again." When she returned to the kitchen, her family hugged her and told her they were no longer angry. As the whole family read dinner namaz, Leila asked Allah in dua that something very good would happen today, because the morning was too sad. And, just as everyone gathered in the kitchen to make jam, Amina came to visit, whom her father had brought in the car, so she was not afraid of the rain. The little guest brought a whole basin of pies, which her grandmother passed with her. The girls had a lot of fun picking cherries together, and since four-handed work went faster, they had plenty of time to play. As Leila fell asleep that day, she sincerely thanked Allah for the lesson and for everything ending so wonderfully.